So we want to look at then the um, blood flow through the kidney. You can see that the renal arteries deliver about 20 to 25% of the cardiac output to each of the kidneys per minute. And so the arterial blood flow into the kidney and the venous flow out of the kidney are very important. They're similar paths, so that if you memorize one, you'll know the other. And the kidneys also have a sympathetic nerve supply, because remember, sympathetic nerve fibers can cause arterioles to constrict, and so we remember that sympathetic tone. And if you remember back to our discussion about the glomerular filtration rate, as the arterioles constrict or dilate, it will affect our glomerular flow rate. So if we look at the anatomy of the vasculature, we see in red we have depicted our arteries, and in blue the veins. One of the unique things that we have in the kidney is we have two capillary beds that the blood is going to flow through. So from the afferent arteriole, we go into the glomerulus, which is a capillary bed, and then into the efferent arteriole. From there, we then go into a second capillary bed that are either called peritubular capillaries because they're around the nephron, or a special type called the vasorecta. Vasorecta capillaries are only present in the juxtamedullary nephrons, and they are in the renal pyramid. One of the other things on this slide that I want you to see, and also as you copy down the flow of blood in your notes, is realize if you know the flow of blood on one side, you'll know it for the other. As you can see, we have a renal artery and a renal vein. We have an interlobar artery, an interlobar vein. We have an arcuate artery, an arcuate vein. We have cortical radiate artery, we have cortical radiate vein. If you notice, there's one type of artery that we do not see in the vein. And so I would put a star by that in your notes, and remember that there is one extra step, one extra branch in the arteries than we have in the venous end. So to identify these, we want to look at some pictures. So here we have the renal artery that comes into the hilum. And as it does so, it branches. And at that branch, we have the segmental artery. It's still here in the renal sinus. It branches and it comes up between our renal columns. It's in the renal column between our pyramids. And as it does, it's called the interlobar artery. It arches then over the pyramids, and as it arches, it's called the arcuate artery. And if we zoom in on that, here we can see is the interlobar, and then the arcuate. Then, just like rays of sunshine as they radiate from the sun, we have the cortical radiate arteries. And memorize and look at that name. Cortical for cortex, radiate because they radiate off that arcuate. From there we go into the afferent arterioles, to the glomerulus, to the efferent arterioles, and then to capillary beds. And we'll either be in the peritubular capillary bed or the vasorecta capillary bed. From there then, the blood has to come back to the heart, and so it uses the venous vasculature. And so from the capillary beds, we'll enter back and come back through the cortical radiate veins, through the arcuate veins, through the interlobar veins, and so here we can see those. They're in the same place as the artery. These are right in the renal columns. That interlobar vein is going to, they merge and they flow out as the renal vein. So notice and remember, there is no segmental vein. Here's another picture, and so let's just run through that again so we could see it in a kidney. So here's the renal artery. It branches into the segmental, then it branches into the interlobar, then it branches and wraps over the pyramids as the arcuate. I remember, and I circle arc, remember it's an arcing vein, to the cortical radiate arteries. Those are going into then the afferent arteriole. It forms the glomerulus. The efferent arteriole exits the glomerulus into either the peritubular capillaries or the vasorecta capillaries, and then it comes back through the venous flow same way. In this cortical cortex region, we have the cortical radiate vein, through the arcuate vein, through here we could see is the interlobar vein, and as those merge we come out the renal vein, and then that blood would go into the inferior vena cava and back to the heart. So we've looked at the vasculature for the afferent and efferent arteriole. We know that those have smooth muscle around them, and that makes them important because they can help us to control the glomerular filtration rate. Glomerulus itself is a capillary, and it's necessary. It's part of that filtration to make the filtrate in the kidney. And now we have two other types of capillary beds. The peritubular capillaries, they're going to be around the whole nephron. And then the vasorecta, they're only in a particular place. After the peritubular capillaries, only in juxtamedullary nephrons, which that makes up only 15%, we have this special vasorecta capillary bed. The vasorecta capillary bed is in the renal pyramid, which has a salt gradient, and so it's going to help us to be able to concentrate urine. If we look at this picture, we can see here is the arcuate artery, and it flows into the interlobar artery, and then we go into the afferent arteriole. Here's the glomerulus. We come out, it's the efferent arteriole, and then into this capillary bed. And so this one is the peritubular capillaries. This picture is taken from the cortex region, and so this is a cortical nephron. Here we have the same type of picture. You can see this is a cortical nephron. We have peritubular capillaries surrounding it. And this is a good picture to be reminded when we have reabsorption, we're taking particles from the filtrate that the body wants to reclaim and take back, like nutrients, certain electrolytes, and water. So to be able to take it back, it not only has to take it out of the nephron, but it has to put it into the bloodstream again. So to put it into the bloodstream, it has to enter through capillaries. So the capillary is surrounding the nephron. So what we take back, we can put back into the blood. Here's a juxtamedullary nephron, and in the juxtamedullary nephron, we can see we also have the vasorecta. And the vasorecta are only wrapping around the loop of Henle, and this will be down in the renal pyramid. And so it's going to have a special job, and it's going to be acting in that medulla, which is a very, it has a very high salt gradient to be able to concentrate the urine.